pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Tonight's meeting, we have a presentation from Jeff Demonsky, Hudson Valley Energy for Joule Community Power. And after that, we just have committee reports. At this point, I'd like to open the floor to Jeff for his presentation.
Yeah, actually,
Thanks very much.
Can we do a roll call? Did we not?
Yeah, we can, sure.
All right.
Roll call.
Jeff Renahan, First Ward. Bill Carlos, Second Ward.
Jessica Lopez, Third Ward.
Michael Safone, Fourth Ward.
Ann Shershin, Sixth Ward.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Jim Nelson, attorney for the town.
John Baisley, Town Supervisor.
Sorry everyone was here. I thought it would be exciting.
Could you also unmute Susan? She wanted to do a little introduction for
Before.
Jeff.
She is unmuted.
I'm unmuted in preparation for
herself.
that. Thank
Susan,
you.
go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I think you guys know who I am, but I will start over again. My name is Susan Karntek. I'm the chair for the Town Climate Smart Task Force. The task force has been educating ourselves about the topic of community choice aggregation because it is a potential action toward certification. It's also a high impact action for the Clean Energy Communities program. And while the town isn't formally on that path, it has already taken some other steps that could potentially be counted, including the changing of the lights to LEDs and the Solar for All campaign that we're going to undertake. So it would help us be in that arena if we so choose. We understand that there's been a presentation to the board in the past on the topic of CCA, but there are new opportunities available in New York State, and we feel it's important that you all need to be updated about that information. And then I want to say that the members of the task force don't have a consensus about whether or not we as a group would recommend that the town join an aggregation. I really want to stress we are not here tonight asking the board to make that kind of commitment. What we are asking for, in light of the updated information and of the many neighboring communities that are doing this, and of the demonstrated growing public support for positive environmental steps, we are simply asking for the town board to partner with us to engage in an objective and open-minded discussion and study of the idea to really learn what this would mean for the town, but not to make any kind of formal commitment at this time. So to that end, we greatly appreciate that Supervisor Baisley was amenable to revisiting the topic, and I'm very pleased to introduce Jeff Demonsky. Jeff is with Hudson Valley Energy, which is the nonprofit that works with Joule assets in many of our surrounding neighboring communities that are at different steps in this process. We invited him to join us tonight to bring the town board up to speed on the current opportunities and to address some of the really primary questions that we know you probably have. So Jeff, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Susan. So I did share slides ahead of time that I believe have been shared with the boards. Would it be good if I shared my slides on my screen for the purpose of the meeting, or should I just speak to
No, Jeff, sharing them, I think, would
slides.
help.
Sure, yeah.
share them?
Yes.
Okay. It should be happening now, as indicated by the black screen on my computer. I think we're in process.
There it goes. You're getting it.
All right, sorry for the delay. I'll go to slideshow mode. And voila. Does that look good?
Looks good, except we don't see anything, but it does say you're starting your
All right,
share.
great.
There it is.
Bravo.
Oh, it did. All right, great. It reverted back to the non-slideshow mode. See if we get it into the slideshow mode. Okay. Can you still see it?
That looks great.
Looks good now.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your patience there. Yeah, so thank you, Susan. I will provide an update. It's exciting that we are up and running now with 2 aggregations of communities in the Hudson Valley. As of a couple of weeks ago, we launched our second one, and I'll talk about those 2 aggregations as part of this brief agenda. But I will start with the basics of what community choice aggregation is, just so that we're on the same page and set the stage for both making sure there's clarity, that it's not confused with other things that may have been experienced in the past, and to set the stage for new opportunities that are available through what community choice aggregation is in New York State and what is starting to happen in some communities. So again, a brief one on what it is and why a community would pursue community choice aggregation. And then for detail and color, I'll talk about the programs that I just mentioned that are live. And that is part of the Joule CCA program. And I'll talk about who Joule is on one of the slides too, to understand what the Joule CCA program is about. And then I have one slide on next steps for new communities. And then there's one last slide. This is where I ask audiences to have 2 brain spaces set aside, one for community choice aggregation as a program, as an opportunity, and one for community solar. Confusing because they both begin with the word community. But community solar is something both that is a parallel opportunity and something that is frequently confused with CCA these days. And there's a lot of companies out there supporting the enrollment of people in community solar. So I will have one slide that I think might be useful just for differentiating what they are. So jumping into the first of 2 slides about what is CCA. Community choice aggregation, in one sentence, it's a policy that was enabled in New York State in 2016 that enables municipalities, cities and towns and villages to source energy on behalf of their residents, businesses, and other organizations within their borders. It is allowed to be done for both gas and electricity, and there are well over 100 communities, I think it's approaching 150 communities that have passed the first step, have passed a local law to enable doing a community choice aggregation program. But there's almost exclusive focus. I believe there is no communities using CCA for gas. So they're all focused on electricity. So, and it is about the sourcing of electricity. It is based on the same concept that has been in place in New York State since the late 1990s, when the utilities were deregulated, when the monopoly was broken up on the utilities, which created a marketplace for supply. It made the utility companies delivery companies, similar to FedEx or UPS, where their business model is to deliver reliably electricity. And so that's the portion that they're allowed to make money on, including gas. They are not allowed to make money on supply for the most part, almost exclusively. And this marketplace for supply has led to dozens and dozens of companies coming on to the registration of New York State and offering contracts to individual households or businesses to either one of 2 things, to either save money compared to what people pay for when the default choice by government default, the default is that the utility makes that supply choice for them. So this private marketplace is something that they could do as an alternative to having the utility company make the supply choice for them as a pass-through. And again, one of 2 reasons. One is to potentially save money versus what they would pay the utilities for sourcing electricity on their behalf. Or 2, as is more frequently happening, to support renewable power, which came or has come to date with a cost premium, typically costs more than what people are paying the utilities for non-renewable electricity. So those are the 2 reasons. So what happened in 2016 is that this marketplace allowed a new player in New York State, where the municipalities could serve as a entity to do a buying club, in essence, having enough leverage through all the members of their communities to get better rates for electricity and offer that to their citizens. It brings together, for the majority of the municipalities looking at this, the ability to marry together those 2 benefits that were originally sought in the energy supply marketplace. The idea of cost savings and renewable electricity, which were typically more expensive. Through the power of a CCA, you can bring those 2 together and offer renewable electricity at less cost than people have been paying for non-renewable electricity through their utility company making that decision. So that is really the focus of what Joule is doing in particular. They're focused on promoting renewable power sourcing at a cost savings for residents and businesses, including fostering not only power from New York State, which is required as part of the CCA Public Service Commission order, but promoting even more so local clean energy. And we can talk more about that in an upcoming slide. This is a snapshot of my Central Hudson bill. I live in Beacon, and it emphasizes just the point that what CCA focuses on is the supply portion of a customer's bill. The delivery section, which I've circled at the top, those are all the line items by which Central Hudson makes its money as a delivery company. So that is unaffected by our program. What happens, and what did happen on my bill shown here, this is what a bill looks like when somebody is in the program. If you know your Central Hudson bill, you know that if you are having Central Hudson make your supply decision, there are typically 3 line items in your supply section. As a member of a CCA, there is 1 line item, which has the fixed program rate in it. And so that's our fixed program rate for 100% renewables from New York. It's in the lower right. It's 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's multiplied by my electricity usage. So this is a simplicity. Everything is included right in that simple rate. There's no other fees. With this idea too, that this rate had to be better than what the utility company had been doing on average. The program is allowed to operate as an opt-out program. And that is an essential essence of what CCA is. It's how it has leverage to get the better rates for electricity than the utility company could obtain. So it's a fixed rate for a fixed period of time, which describes, in essence, the beginning of the numerous consumer protection elements that are baked into this program. So to summarize what the program is about in terms of its motivation, there are 3 wins that are sought. And I'll talk about those coming up, but they are the idea of cost savings in a way that can promote renewable electricity in a way that protects consumers in terms of transparency, simplicity, and a lack of restriction, since they are not involved in a contract. So these are summarized on this slide of why CCA. The fact that there are rate benefits, there are environmental benefits to the program, and consumer protection benefits. And on this slide, I talk about some of the benefits from the program that we launched here in the Hudson Valley with surrounding communities back in the middle of last year. I'll show you the title slide of that program and the program name. But in essence, we included 27,000 households and transitioned the majority of them to 100% renewable electricity at a rate that was less than they had been paying in the previous 12-month period for non-renewable electricity. The benefit to date, since we launched the program in the middle of 2019, we calculate about 200,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions avoided by this, because these households are exclusively supporting renewable electricity production in New York State. It had immediate impacts on renewable producers in New York State and sends very powerful signals for future developers and producers of renewable electricity. So very powerful impacts on the New York State grid. In the upper right, I talk about the program rates and some of the elements that are key for the program. It only proceeds, a program only proceeds for communities if the rates that are offered, the rates that are obtained for the program, are less than the benchmark of the utility average. I've mentioned that a few times, but that's really essential in seeking the win-win-win scenario that this program seeks to offer. So that is an apples to orange comparison, if you will, because we're talking about, particularly with the focus on a rate for 100% renewable electricity from New York State, that it has to be less than the utility average, which is the orange compared to that apple, which is non-renewable electricity. The second bullet under program rates talks about how there's an apples to apples comparison. The rate that we obtain through the program, through this buying club, is much better than what the individual customer could get for 100% renewable product in the open marketplace. And ours comes without a contract restriction. So they have complete flexibility in this program as well, which is very much not the case in the open private market. which has led to many of the bad experiences that people have had with the open energy marketplace for supply. Contracts that had expensive exit fees that were indeterminate, that had fixed fees that turned variable. So that's some of these consumer protection elements that we talked about. The transparency of a low fixed rate, no contracts and no restrictions. The fact that our programs to date have been 2-year programs. The one that we launched up here in Central Hudson territory, we're in the second year of the 2-year contract. We also have a 2-year contract for the program we just launched with Rockland County communities. And that is not because it's a pilot program. It's about making sure that people are not stuck in something that is endless or something that they don't understand. The idea of this program, a community does it. They engage in a contract for the fixed rate for every month of that contract. And then afterwards, it ends. And everyone reverts back to Central Hudson making their supply decision unless the communities re-engage the process of obtaining a new rate, doing all the public outreach and awareness building, and launching a program with a new rate. The idea is that there are no surprises for the residents that are taking part in the community choice aggregation program. In addition, there's many other consumer protection elements, but the last I talk about is the role of my organization, which is to provide team support, education, awareness building, outreach and education, answer questions throughout the life of the program. It's very important because beyond the benefits we've talked about before, this is addressing the challenges that have existed in the energy marketplace, where it's a very confusing place with many bad actors. There's many good actors, but there are many bad actors. So the idea is that we are there to help educate people and to build comfort with a marketplace in which there are really a great deal of good opportunities for cost savings and to promote environmental goals. But we recognize that it's important to be a resource throughout the life of the program. And so that's the model that we're working with. And that's the decision that was made by Joule, the administrator, that is one of the 4 approved administrators in New York State. To be a CCA administrator, one must file an implementation plan and have it approved by the Public Service Commission. So Joule is one of the 4 that's in the state. They are authorized to represent municipalities throughout the CCA process, including the issuance of a request for proposals for program rates and to manage all of the legal and technical document management that is required for launching a CCA program. Joule is a resource to the state more widely, including as a contractor to the New York State Energy Research Development Authority, whereby they've developed and continue to develop resources for communities, regardless of whether it's a Joule CCA program, but for them to use. And Joule is overseeing several CCA programs in New York State at this time. Everything from the tip of Long Island, they're working on launching one there. The 2 that were active here in the Hudson Valley. There's another one that's active upstate and several coming online upstate. And they are working with the city of Rochester to launch a program as well. And in the upstate territory, some very exciting things are happening that I think we might have time to talk about. Joule had a very aggressive implementation plan where they wanted to do a lot of good things with it. One of those things, as I mentioned before, was to go beyond the outreach and education requirements required within the order. And the way that they did this was to include in each of the CCA areas that they're working on a local program manager, a nonprofit to serve as a local program manager who does outreach, education, and customer support. And supports the communities throughout the life of the program for the duration of the contract. And that's my organization. I'm the director of Hudson Valley Energy, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we focus on providing citizen-centered services to support sustainability efforts in communities. So on the topic again of the Joule CCA program, this is our logo slide, our title slide for the program that we launched here in Central Hudson territory back in the middle of 2019. The lower left shows all of the partners in this effort. There are 10 communities that are partners in it, including the city of Poughkeepsie and the city of Beacon, the town of Fishkill. Red Hook is part of this, as is the town of Clinton and Dutchess County. The Joule is located in the lower left as the administrator, my organization in the middle of the bottom, Hudson Valley Energy. Together, those partners all selected through a request for proposal process Direct Energy to be the supplier for the program, who is, to put it, I think in a very useful way, handcuffed by our program to deliver the simple, transparent opportunity that it represents. And I always include the logo for Central Hudson on here. While they are not a named or a contractual partner in this partnership, it's very important to emphasize that this program does not replace or displace Central Hudson in any way. We couldn't do it without them. They are the delivery company, and as shown, it happens through their bill. The rate of the program is put right on the bill. Lots of good resources in the lower right, including our program website, if you'd like more information. This is a similar title slide for the program we just launched for the Rockland Community Power Program. Again, Rockland Community Power is the name of the partnership, as Hudson Valley Community Power was the name of the partnership for the Central Hudson program. The Rockland Community Power Program includes the 6 communities that I put in bullets in the lower left, representing about 39,000 households in those 6 communities, all in Orange and Rockland territory, so I included their logo. And you see Joule is there and I'm there, and we chose for this aggregation Constellation Energy. So I like the fact that it represents the fact that there's different logos and different companies chosen, that it really is about objectively choosing what is best for the communities through the program. So that completes my what and why and the Joule program description in brief. And I will talk about more of the good things that are happening or potential if it comes up in our conversation, but I want to keep it relatively simple and move on to the last of my agenda bullets, talking about the process. And I'll explain what's happening on this slide. In essence, there are 12 steps for a community that's interested in doing a community choice aggregation program to launch, to get from step 1 all the way through step 12, which is program launch. I've put a box around steps 8 through 12 because the steps above that are completely no commitment steps. A community can do all steps 1 through 7 and not have any obligation to actually launch a CCA program. I think it's very important that that's emphasized, because with the opportunities it represents, it's nice for a community to position itself to be ready to launch a program, but realize that they're not locked into anything, which includes the second step, which I'll talk about. The first step is adopting an enabling local law. That is required by the Public Service Commission order, and it is an enabling law. It allows the community to go forward with a CCA program, to explore it. It is just a required step. Step 2 in this process is selecting a CCA administrator or an administration approach. Even when a community does that, though, they are not locked in to launch through a program. And you do understand in my previous description what the role of the CCA administrator is. Step 3 is the outreach period, just emphasizing that there is, by state requirement, public outreach and awareness building, which we do way beyond the state requirements, with my organization in the lead. It is a regulated program, so there is Public Service Commission approval requirements for every step of the process, including the outreach efforts that are done. After approval is obtained for the outreach and awareness building, then there can be the acquisition of data, which moves towards the step 7 after the town approves the requirements of what would go into the request for proposals and issuance to get the rate for the program. It's only after proposals come back from a request for proposal issuance, if one of those proposals or one or more proposals meet the requirements of the program that I mentioned before, that the rates be less than the benchmark, that there be a rate for 100% renewable, if that's what the town wants, as we are very focused on. If there are no restrictions on the members of the communities, the fact that they can come and go at will with no cost or penalty, that's a very transparent program. If those requirements are met, then there is the expectation that the CCA will go forward. And that's when the awarding of the RFP, then the kickoff efforts, and the launch of a program. There are no, except for opportunity costs, time spent to review and to provide guidance and to engage in the steps to launch the program, there are no direct costs for a community in any of these steps to launch a CCA program. including for step 9 and 10, in which there is an issuance of a letter to every member of the community describing the launch of the program. That expense is paid for by the supplier that's selected. So no direct expenses for a community. And then after the required opt-out period, in which there is more outreach, the program can launch at step 12. So that's the CCA process. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to put up the next, I'll leave it right here, but let me stop just to see if there's any questions before I go any further. And if there's not enough time for any more discussion, I'm happy to stop there as well. But are there any questions that I can answer?
Does anybody have any questions this time?
I have a few, but anybody else?
Anybody
Is there
else?
another portion to this? This is
Yeah, how
just-
much more?
There's
do you
only
have?
one more slide. I have
Alright,
one
we'll
more
let you do
slide
that,
just on the
Justin, go
difference
on.
between community choice aggregation and community solar,
Yeah, we'll let
just
you
for that
finish.
differentiation. But I just thought maybe I'd stop just to focus on CCA for a moment. But should I do the last slide?
Yeah, do the last slide, then we can ask whatever questions.
Okay, very good. So this is my menu slide, which we developed to help people get even further clarity on what community choice aggregation is, what it represents, both in a before and after scenario, in terms of before a CCA and after a CCA. And the slide also allows me to differentiate this from decisions about solar, including community solar. So this is I call it my menu slide because it's based in my mind on the idea of walking into a restaurant where you have the appetizers and the entree menu, and maybe it's a price fixed menu, and you can pick one from each column. So that's the instructions for this column, for this slide with each of these two tables. You can pick one from each side, and you can mix and match as you will. This table on the left is for electricity supply decisions. The table on the right is for solar decisions. On the electricity supply side, before a CCA program launches, by state mandate, there are two options that a resident of New York State has before them. In terms of supply decision, they can either have their local utility, in this case Central Hudson, make that decision for them, or because of deregulation in the 90s, they can go out to a third-party supplier and enter a contract for supply for one of the two reasons that I talked about. CCA adds an additional option in a community that launches a CCA. It is the new default option, as the utility, as number one, used to be the default by state mandate prior to the launch of a program. In a CCA community, the CCA choice becomes the default, but it can be rejected by anyone at any time, and they can return to the other two options that are before them. So it only adds an option, doesn't take anything away. Now, on the solar side, this is about the decision about solar energy generation. Customers have the ability, anyone, to do absolutely nothing about solar. That's choice A. They can do absolutely nothing. Don't put solar on their house or don't do anything else. Choice B, as many people are doing, they can put a solar electricity generating system on their home or business. Step C is almost concurrent with CCA in New York, has been the growth of something called community solar. And in a quick nutshell, community solar is where someone who has not done B and is not content with A on the solar table, they can subscribe to a field of solar that's in the utility territory, become a virtual owner with no upfront costs. And by helping that solar developer meet the state requirement of getting subscribers for every one of the solar panels in their field, they get to share in the incentive that that developer achieves for doing a community solar project. In simplest terms, many of the models out there wonderfully offer a very simple 10% savings of the total electric bill for every year of what is typically a 20-year contract. This is something we do promote as a parallel opportunity to CCA. And it is something similar to CCA. It's something that with the vetting and the partnership that we do, it is a 20-year contract, but anyone could walk away from that contract at any time. Though the only reason I think they would want to do so is if they decided to go for option B at some point in time. But that is just, I think it's just necessary. I thank you for that time to do that differentiation between CCA and community solar. And I do hope it helps to differentiate and understand what the two options are. So that is my general about what the program is. I would add one additional point, that these things are not static. And it speaks to the complexity of the energy marketplace and the benefit of having a team that's focused on these programs within the community as a resource to help continue to take advantage of the opportunities that are in the energy marketplace. For example, the community solar opportunity, as opposed to the CCA model right now, where when it does launch, it is an opt-out program, meaning people have to say if they don't want a membership in that club to take advantage of those fixed rates, one of those fixed rates. Community solar to date in our area has been and continues to be an opt-in opportunity. People have to choose to subscribe to community solar. It is that simple a benefit of a 10% benefit on the electricity bill. So there is a lot of interest by many parties in bringing this to communities and combining it with the CCA program to bring a larger guaranteed benefit to the residents of these communities. And that's what's happening upstate as an example of something that is changing and in the mix for how these programs are improving. Is that there is now upstate in National Grid territory where they have finished consolidating the utility bill, where both CCA and community solar are completely handled through the utility company's bill. They're doing an opt-out community solar model, which is bringing guaranteed larger savings to the residents of those communities that are doing it. And this could be something that in the not too distant future will be available in our territory as well. So I've presented a lot of information. I thank you for the time to present that update. And I will stop and take questions, including if you'd like, I can list off the communities that are part of our CCA in this area.
Jeff, thank you for the presentation. Board members, Jeff, do you have any questions this time?
No question.
Bill?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You mentioned there are 2 communities now that are doing this. What 2 communities are doing it?
Well, there's 2 aggregations in the Hudson Valley. And I think that's what I mentioned and you might be referring to. The one aggregation is the Hudson Valley Community Power Aggregation, and that's a partnership. And it includes the city of Poughkeepsie, the city of Beacon, the town of Fishkill, the town of Phillipstown in Putnam, and also Cold Spring, which is a village next to Phillipstown in Putnam, Red Hook, and the town of Clinton, both in Dutchess, Marbletown in Ulster, and also in Ulster, New Paltz town and village. And I think that was 10. So those are the 10 communities that are actively doing a CCA very close to the town of Poughkeepsie. And then the other aggregation happens to be all communities in Rockland County, thus the name Rockland Community Power, and it's Clarkstown, Orangetown, Nyack, Upper Nyack, South Nyack, and the village of Haverstraw.
Okay, but is it actually working in any of these communities, or are they going through the process?
It's working. It's up and active. Yep, it is active.
So those communities then passed a local law telling all the residents and all the businesses that from now on, they're going to deal with Hudson Valley Power for all their energy. And if they don't want to do that, they can opt out. Am I
Correct.
saying that right?
That's correct. And except
Okay,
for
so-
anyone who already had a third-party supplier, they're automatically opted out of the program.
Okay. So you're asking the town board to pass a local law which will directly benefit your company because you're going to get the business. Am I saying that right?
There's truth in that, but it is
Okay.
something that's structured as a public benefit and brings benefit to all the members of this community. That is really
you
the
seem
essence of
to
this
you seem to
program.
put across that this is a very good program and has a lot of merit to it. Could it stand on its own in the public marketplace and have people elect or not elect to participate? Why do you have to have a municipality, through a local law, force all the residents and all the businesses? And when I'm thinking about businesses in the town of Poughkeepsie, I'm thinking about from the hospital to IBM to the deli down on Vassar Road. There's a huge thing here. It's not small. So
Understood.
if I'm understanding this correctly, and Jeff, you got to tell me where I'm wrong. You're asking this board to pass a local law directing, forcing, telling, whatever the right word is, every single resident in the town and all the businesses in the town that as of that date, we're going to be in this community choice aggregation unless they want to opt out. Is that right?
It's correct. That is correct. And it
Okay.
is structured in that way.
Well, if it's such a good
operates that way
idea,
to have
why
the
do you
leverage in
need the
marketplace.
municipality to pass a local law forcing everybody into it? Why don't you go into the marketplace and sell it?
Well,
I
that
have a real
opportunity has
problem
been
with
there.
forcing people and making decisions. These 7 people sitting at this board can't possibly have in our mind what's best for Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital or the deli down on Vassar Road. Yet you're asking us to pass a local law forcing unless they opt out. And then I think about, like, the lady who lives across the street from my contemporary right here. She's in her 80s. How's she going to even know what opt out means? And how are you going to know about that except from the sheets you get from Central Hudson?
But
And-
you
and
do
we
get
do
mailed
have-
letters. I mean, actually, as people know, my house is on the border. My driveway's in the city. My house is in the town, and we are part of the CCA for the city of Poughkeepsie. We received letters, and since I was aware of this and understand the process, I showed it to my husband and said, "You want to opt out?" And he totally shocked me and said, "No."
Did the
So-
city of Poughkeepsie pass a law that
Yes.
forced you in?
It's not forced. You receive letters. The problem is, most people don't pay attention to these things. And sadly, the reason why they're doing it through municipalities is they need that volume. They need a large number of people in order to be able to negotiate and get this price. So that's the problem, because when people opt in, and I was surprised, I thought more people were third-party suppliers. It's only like, tell me if I'm wrong, Jeff, like 20% of the people?
At best.
Less.
Typically lower.
Yeah, I was surprised how many people stay with Central Hudson. And the other thing too is it's only a 2-year commitment. And that's just one thing I like, because a lot of third parties really, and I've had problems when we were in Georgia, that once you were in and the initial period, the 6-month or 1-year trial period was up, your rates went crazy. So that's why I never took a third party while I was here. I just stayed with Central Hudson because I knew over the long run I would be better off. But this here, you get a set rate for 2 years, and when 2 years is done, if they don't re-up it, you go back to Central Hudson.
Can I, sorry,
Sure.
okay. I have not explored the concept of a CCA since back in 2017 when everything was being discussed for the one that's local to us here. So I just want to make sure that I have a couple facts correct because it's been a while. The Central Hudson is still the deliverer, so we are not taking away, or we would not be, as a board, taking Central Hudson out of the equation, and now suddenly people are paying Joule. On the Central Hudson bill, there is the suppliers who you're actually getting your energy from. At the moment, if you don't call Central Hudson or look through your bill and make a decision as a resident, that, or even no, until I became educated on CCA a bit, I had no idea that I could call Central Hudson and say, who is giving me my energy? What are my other choices? Central Hudson, I get a Central Hudson bill and I pay it. Jeff, do we have any idea how many people actually use Central Hudson in that way, that they choose their own mix through Central Hudson, and how many people let Central Hudson choose? And I ask, I'm sorry, I'm just going to tell you why I'm asking and then actually let you answer, is because right now, if we decided as a board to create the energy mix that our town is receiving, and we could make those decisions based on price alone or based on, more renewable sources or a combination of those, to pass savings and give environmental benefit to the town. If we don't do that, for the most part, Central Hudson is making those decisions for our residents, and Central Hudson certainly makes money off of those decisions. So we're just switching, who's making the decisions. Right now, for the most part, I would assume Central Hudson does. I don't think most people know to call Central Hudson and that they can choose where their energy comes from. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I didn't know, certainly. I don't know.
That is correct. It's about 85% of people are having Central Hudson make their supply decision in our territory.
Okay.
And has been an opportunity. And I'd like to couple that with my favorite survey. Forgive me for it, but it's a very good, it's a very general survey. In October 2018, Consumer Reports, the magazine that we all look to when we're deciding on a new product, they did a survey, a very robust survey across the US, red state, blue state, it was not a political bias, about renewable electricity. And it mirrored numerous other surveys in its findings. And they found that 75% of Americans, regardless of political background or leaning, wanted more renewable electricity, wanted access to renewable electricity. 60% of those respondents were willing to pay more for that electricity, willing to pay $5 a month more, so $60 per year more for renewable electricity. To that point that you just made, 15% of people are going into the open marketplace, the alternative to the state mandate of Central Hudson making that decision. And not all of them are doing that for renewables. Some of those 15% are doing it for cost savings. So a good program design, good policy is something that helps people get what they want. And again, that survey is not just self-serving. It is a good, robust, general organization behind it. And it repeats many other surveys out there about the belief and desire for renewables. So this is just an additional option given. It does become the new default, but it's something that very powerfully delivers what citizens are looking for, what residents are looking for, in a way that they can reject, but in a way that delivers a public benefit. You know, not only doesn't have to cost more, it can actually save them too. And we do get paid through the program, but we get paid, it's baked into the rate that the supplier provides. It's 8/100ths of a cent for every kilowatt hour that pays for Joule and my organization to support the program. But it's in there, it's true. But it is allowed to go forward because it does deliver what people are looking for as a public benefit.
Can
just
an
have one-
individual?
oh, sorry.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I have one more thing and then I'm done. My other assumption that I had come to back when we explored this the first time was that if 85% of people are allowing Central Hudson to make the decision for them, those same 85 might not hate the idea of having someone else make the decision for them. That could be an environmental benefit and a savings benefit. The other 15% who are not allowing Central Hudson, that they're going in, they might say, no, I'm good. I choose my own energy mix and I am happy with what I have. They're knowledgeable enough already, obviously, because they're doing it themselves. And then those would be the people that would say, I don't want any part of this. I'm opting out because I like what I have and I'm choosing what I have. The other people already aren't choosing what they have because Central Hudson is. So those are just my thoughts.
That's a good point. To Bill's point about the businesses. Many businesses have made that decision, and they would not be removed from the decision they made in their third-party contract. Nobody who's made the third-party contract is removed from that decision. And many of the businesses are too large to be automatically included too. So any business that has
But
a
Jeff,
has a
then
demand meter.
then why do you need a town board to pass a town law telling the people this is what we're doing? Why can't the people decide for themselves? If they want to go in and change something for Central Hudson, that's up to them. The part that I have a real problem with is passing a local law forcing 47,000 people and 3,800 businesses, some of the largest businesses in the county. And we're making the decision for them to where we're going to go. And then Joule or Mid-Hudson or whatever it is, you're going to make the money on that. If it's such a good thing, then advertise it and get people to sign up. Why do you need the force of government to get business to a private company? That makes no sense to me.
It's more of a question of not why, but why haven't they? And they haven't for many reasons. And that's what this program is about. Only 15% of people have gone into the marketplace. The majority haven't for many reasons, including the complexity, the fact that they're very busy, the fact that when they do get into it, they can get overwhelmed, the fact that there are many bad actors out there. The idea of doing this with a town is that there are protections, there is vetting to give them confidence to take advantage of what's good in the marketplace.
No, but Jeff, I see the other side of that. I see a company or an idea that hasn't got the ability to pull customers in, using local government to force the decision on all these people and all these businesses. And I cannot support that in any way, shape, or form. That's not the part or the duty or the obligation of government. We're supposed to get out of the way and let the citizens do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I do think Central Hudson on their website has different partners that they allow you to switch to if you wanted to. So I'm in favor with Bill on this one. We've had companies come before us, and I'm not willing to make that move for the residents of the town. I'll let them make their own decisions.
Jeff, one of the comments you made, you didn't get a chance to answer it. You said size. There's only a certain size that you're allowed to serve as far as businesses. Can you only go to so much electricity per person? Is that what you were saying?
Right. The Public Service Commission has a definition in their order about rate classes that are included. Larger businesses that have demand meters, their supply rates can be very small, but there's a balancing in the calculation. But we would not put them into our simple supply rate program because it would not necessarily benefit them versus the supply rates they would pay, because they would still have to pay their demand meter charges. So I think it's 100 kilowatt per year demand. That's a threshold.
That was question one. Number two, opt out. The way you purchase your power is in volume. If you had a very educated population that decided that 50% opted out, what does that do to the effect of your rate? Is it no longer feasible and the rate goes up?
Nope, it stays the same. The supplier, when they sign the contract, it's a type of contract where they're locked in regardless of the participation afterwards. It's a risk that they take on knowing there is experience with these programs, and they know that a certain percentage will stay within the program, and it's historically and even recently been proven.
And when I saw this presentation the first time, I expressed my one major concern was we did opt out into a third party at one point, and it did not work out. We opted back because the yearly rate for Central Hudson turned out to be cheaper overall, and just because it's solar doesn't always necessarily make it cheaper. I looked at the Joule rates the other day, and they were just a little bit higher. And am I correct or incorrect that this whole program is subsidized by New York State?
This program is not subsidized by New York State. The CECA program with the rates is just the open marketplace. And it's the buying club aspect that we get the low fixed rate for the program, but it is not guaranteed. And it is the worst case scenario for this program is that Central Hudson's rates over the life of the program ended up being lower on average than our fixed program rate, and people paid more than they would have otherwise. But that's balanced against the other benefits that are baked into the program, coupled with the fact that anybody can opt out at any time. And it's not like we launch the program and then go away. We stay here. We recognize and believe in the value of the program. And I believe in the necessity and the value, especially in the world we're living in, of having a resource for energy market education. I use the term that ESL is often applied to English as a second language, but here it's energy as a second language. And the opportunities and the necessity of understanding them are going to likely increase in the years to come. And so I like my role of educating and being a resource to the communities to keep navigating the opportunities.
So Jeff, along the line, as you said no money from the state is subsidized for this or these solar farms that you're purchasing this solar from.
I didn't say that.
I asked if there was any money involved at all that was subsidized for this solar, which is all solar. So your program itself is not subsidized by the state, but most of these solar farms have subsidies, or they are tax exempt properties due to New York State law, if I'm correct, or they have to enter into a pilot program. So what the savings could be to a resident, it happens to be a large solar farm in their town, that little bit of savings could be eaten up in the taxes that that property should have been paying if they're not opted out to become tax exempt.
The CCA program has no state incentive involved in it. The community solar program, the residents do share in the state incentive that the community solar developer achieves. And what you're describing in terms of the business model for a development of a solar program is on the developer side. That is not related to our program.
No,
Jeff,
we-
would your,
No, Bill, let me just finish my
Yeah.
last question. But directly, that is incorporated into the cost because whatever money comes from New York State to help or make them tax exempt is money that all the residents of New York State are paying for. So when I make a decision, I really like to delve a little deeper in it. When I discussed this with you earlier on, we had a solar program that came in and they had a mild pilot because if we didn't opt in, they would have been tax exempt. And we asked if we could purchase all the solar for part of the town, and they couldn't come close to the cost of what we were paying now. It would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars a year more in electric at that time. I just dig in a little deeper than just, the CCA part of it. I like to see the money that goes all the way back. It's all about the money and following the money and see where it actually goes to make it. Solar's great. Community solar, I think, is a great program. We opted in for community solar because I think it really gives people that don't have the ability to put solar on their homes and they still want to be part of a solar program, a great program. And that is meant for a lot of affordable housing, projects that helps those people, get their feet on the ground, get a step up, and to subsidize that, I really don't have as much of an issue with, but I'm still having a hard time, as you know, trying to wrap my hand around this one.
and Jeff, the part that I can't get past in my head is that a municipal government, a government entity, has to pass a law telling all the citizens and businesses in the municipality that they're going to do this. That, in my opinion, guarantees Joule or Hudson Valley, or whoever you want to call it, a significant amount of income. And for what? And why can't the people opt in? Why don't you market this and let people who want this opt in? Central Hudson can't stop them from leaving. Instead of the other way around. My big problem is with government forcing citizens to do something. If we force them to do this now, how about next month we decide that mobile gas is environmentally friendly and from now on everybody in the town is going to buy mobile gas? Or we say the XYZ garbage company is doing their stuff environmentally friendly, so we're going to pass a law and the whole town is going to use that garbage company.
That's exactly what New Paltz did. The town of New Paltz did that. So everybody has to use one garbage collection.
There is a difference. There's certainly a difference, though, in what we're describing. This is not mandating. It's creating the new default. It's replacing the state mandate where the default is the utility company makes that decision. This creates a new default as a new option. It is not a mandate that everyone must do.
I have no problem with that, Jeff. Let the people make the choice to opt in. Why use government to force them, which is what this does? This is
takes
as
advantage of the
wrong
marketplace
as something
in a
can
beautiful
be
design
wrong.
to get the leverage in the marketplace. It just couldn't work the other way. It's been the opportunity for the last 20 odd years to let people do it, and they haven't done it.
Okay, so
various
now
reasons.
you want to force them to do it by the power of a local law. Are we going to have a penalty if they decide not to do it? Are we going to give them a fine, send the police to their house?
No.
What do you want? If it hasn't worked by people coming to you, you want government to force them to come to you. That's the kind of government I don't think too many people in our country want to have. I know there's no way that I can support this in the town of Poughkeepsie as it is. If you want to come back and say this is a great program, we'd like to send flyers out in your water bills to all your customers, I could see helping you like that. But I get a real problem with government dictating to the people who pay the bills, by the way. They pay the taxes, they elect us. We're going to tell them what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Jeff, thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry I've been so strong on this, but this is just simply wrong.
Jeff, we have your, anybody else have any questions? Jeff, we have your
I see
contact
Susan has her hands
information.
up, but
And-
if you'd allow her to speak.
What was that, Jeff?
Susan has her hands up.
Well, this is, right now, this is a board discussion. It's
Okay,
not
very
open to
good.
the
Just wanted to let
public
you
at
know.
this time. Yeah. She can address her concerns at the end, you know. I give
Well,
her,
thank you very much.
yeah, no, thank you. I'll make sure everybody has your emails, and we can get any other questions they have involved, and they can ask those questions, you know. That brings on to our committee reports. Finance?
Finance Committee's been meeting, going over the budget, and we're still working on it currently.
Technology, Mike or Ann?
Nothing to report.
Right. The only thing I'll report on technology is we are moving forward on our website. We've had our first opening meeting, and we're having another meeting next week. We'll be with a core group to try to move it forward. Recreation, Ann?
Yes, I'm happy to say that this Saturday, October 24th, is going to be the trunk or treat, and that's where you decorate up your trunk.
Next Saturday?
Yeah, this coming
Next Saturday.
next Saturday.
24th.
The 24th.
Next Saturday.
Oh, you know, Brian told me next Saturday.
We'll have
It's
a
the
good time.
24th.
The
I
holiday's
didn't check-
missing a lot of us.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you're-
It's a mess. Saturday, not this Saturday, next week Saturday. Saturday, the 24th, we're going to do trunk or treat in Greenville Park. That's where you decorate up your trunk, bring your kids in costumes, and it's from 3 to 5. You have to make a reservation, and you need to call REC, and the number is 485-3628. So give a call. It's also on our website. Give REC a call if you want to decorate your trunk up and come and participate with this. And the other things going on is they're finishing up children's leagues, the youth leagues, which includes soccer, softball, and baseball. They're nearly done. Happy to say that both of our bathrooms are now working. The one at Greenville and the one at Creekside are working, but not for too much longer. They're going to be winterized, and we're closing them down at the end of the month. And the kitchen is done at the senior center, so that's where we stand right now.
That's great.
Fire advisory,
No report.
infrastructure.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I passed out a sheet that you all have, but before I get to that, the pump station on Spectre Road that is in the floodplain has to be raised. Well, the report today is we're very close to having that finished, and that's good. I've been doing this infrastructure committee now since I came on the board. It's been a while. And I want to say to the town residents, you don't see, other than the reduction in your taxes, the amount of cooperation and work that goes on amongst our sewer people, our water people, and our highway people. It's absolutely unbelievable how that cooperation simply flows. And there's no mandate. And the people that benefit is all of you. You pay the taxes, this is your town. And this is the kind of people we have working for us. I'm impressed every single time we have an infrastructure committee meeting of the problems being resolved and not requiring anything to come to the town board or more money to be spent. I appreciate that. Okay, the second item is the document in front of you. This came up in infrastructure 3 meetings ago, came up again at the last meeting, and has been refined. And I'm going to do it as best I can to make it as simple as I can. We have to look at changing the types of customers we have. We have regular customers, which is everybody who's got the sewers. Then we have commercial people, businesses that use our sewers. And now there's going to be a third thing, and it's called industrial or institutional users. These are big entities. I want you to think about the hospital, IBM. There's a company over here on the road behind us that has a lot of really serious chemicals that they put into our sewer system. Sewer system is bought and paid for by all our taxpayers. The sewer plants are bought and paid for by all our taxpayers. Several times, Mr. Zani, who runs our sewer department, has said to him, he's had groups of senior citizens say, why are all these big things getting benefits from our sewer system? Shouldn't they be paying more? So the document you have in front of you is what's being proposed. And there's a step 2 to this. we'll have before the board, if you want it, the people that are involved in this, our controller and Frank Ozani. But it's pretty laid out pretty well. The industrial users are going to have a $2,500 annual permit fee, and they're going to pay a lot more for the cubic feet of material that goes through the sewer from them. Now, this hasn't happened before. I want you to think about a college's chemistry lab, and they're done with whatever they're doing. All that goes down the sink in the lab. It finds its way into our pipes. It damages the inside of our pipes. It reduces the metal part of it. Today's meeting, they replaced 2 pieces of pipe. I asked the people involved to save them so they can bring them in here and you can see what the chemicals do to the pipes, sewer pipes. So this will work its way through all of us, through our committees. It's going to make it very expensive for commercial entities to make their businesses here, do their businesses, and put the chemicals into our sewer system. If they don't like this, I feel bad about that, but they are certainly, they can go hire a private company to come in with a tanker truck and take this, I don't want to use the nasty word, the waste material with chemicals in it away, instead of flushing it down the drains into our places. Part B to this, once this is established, if the board agrees and we move forward on this, then I'd like to have us do a change in the local law so that these rates can be set by the town board at its organizational meeting. So we don't have to go through all of these steps each time something has to change, up or down. And that's all from infrastructure.
Personnel Committee,
Nothing to report?
Building Consolidation. We're just working through the process amongst Jessica Lopez and Bill Carlos and I, and hopefully we'll have a report next month or so. We're just putting together some stuff. And as far as my report, just town business as usual. The budget's been given to the Finance Committee to overlook, and we're going through that process. And we'll have a budget hearing at our next meeting. Does anybody have anything else before I open the floor? I'd like to make a motion for comment from anybody in reference to anything. Please ask that they limit it to 3 minutes. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody that would like to speak at all?
Susan.
You get Susan?
Susan?
Go ahead, Susan. She's not unmuted. Now you are.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yeah.
you're unmuted.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't sure of the parliamentary procedure earlier. First, I want to thank the board for hosting the presentation. We on the task force greatly appreciate it. I would really like to take a try at reframing this idea, not as forcing, but as enabling the town residents to take advantage of an opportunity that would not exist for them without the town helping to organize it on a large scale. People can't get this kind of opportunity as individuals because of the buying power aspect that's needed. My own perspective on this is we are in a catastrophic emergency, and public sentiment is undeniably moving in the direction of taking robust environmental steps. Residents everywhere are looking for their elected representatives, that's you guys, to take these steps, whether it's local or state or federal. Seems to me that the town took the step of becoming a climate smart community, with this in mind. And I really encourage you to consider allowing your constituents in this town to have the opportunity to become educated about this opportunity so that they can indeed make their own decisions. Speaking for myself, I'm here for my children. I hope that you guys can all be here for yours as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Felicia, do you have anybody else on?
Would anybody else like to speak? If so,
No?
please raise your hand. It does not look like it. You can unmute yourself. Is there a Leslie there that's unmuted? No? No. Leslie, would you like to speak? Just checking because I muted you and unmuted you and, okay, so she doesn't want to speak.
All right.
Sorry.
Make a motion, resume the rules?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I move we go into attorney-client session and to an executive session to discuss thinking of hiring of a particular person, so.
Motion second? All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to invite the comptroller and the chief of police. Poughkeepsie Town Board is in executive session, 8:05 PM. Everybody have a good night.